Well, Matt, it's a big day in sports here today, but you know what? I know you're very happy. I mean, we got a lot on our plate to discuss today.
Yeah, a whole bunch. There was a big fallout in the Northeast area for the NFL. That might be the first thing we get to today, but a big day for baseball as well. Both the Yankees and Dodgers are facing big games today, but we'll get into that later in the show.
Well, let's talk about the fallout in Gotham City, where the New York Jets unexpectedly fired Robert Saleh after a 2-3 start. I did not know where this came from. I thought at first this was fake news. I thought the Jets normally would wait till the end of the season to reevaluate things and to make a decision on a head coach. But Woody Johnson just pulled the trigger early without even notifying Aaron Rodgers and Joe Douglas.
Yes. So the fallout, apparently, this was an entirely Woody Johnson decision. And supposedly, Robert Saleh has not been on good terms with Woody Johnson for a couple of years now. This goes back to the 2022 season, where basically every move that Saleh made was magnified. And apparently, when they made the move to get Aaron Rodgers, that was the number one thing to try and keep Woody Johnson happy. But it's also a two-way street as well. I mean, if you look at what's happened, Aaron Rodgers wasn't fully responsible for Robert Saleh getting fired, but he definitely wasn't a solution to things either. Because look at what Aaron Rodgers did when he first got to New York. You want Nathaniel Hackett? Okay, we'll grab him. You want Alan Lazard? Okay, here he is. You want Mercedes Lewis and Randall Cobb? Okay, we brought them in. And look at what's happened. Not a lot with the Jets. And one last thing I got to say is that the number of points the Jets offense has scored in the first 5 games of this year is the exact same number of points they scored in 5 games last year with Zach Wilson.
Man, I just think that Robert Saleh is I don't think he's an offensive coach, but he's just a good coach that can build cultures. But, there was also, you forgot about, is that he was considering firing Nathaniel Hackett, and then Aaron Rodgers told him no.
Yeah, well, Aaron Rodgers had Hackett's back all the way because they've worked together in Green Bay. Rodgers won back-to-back MVPs with Hackett. And the way the story played is they selected Jeff Ulbrich, their defensive coordinator, as the interim head coach for the season, by the way. The way Woody Johnson looked at it, it was either we'll put Hackett as the head coach or we'll put in Jeff Ulbrich as the head coach. They backed off of putting on Hackett because they knew what happened in Denver was a disaster, so they were just like, okay, let's give this guy Jeff Ulbrich a chance. Big mistake.
We have to find that out because the Jets take on the Bills on Monday night, and, I think there will be fans that will be booing Woody Johnson that day.
It's not a good look. Listen, you mentioned it before. It's been since 1976 that the Jets fired a head coach in season. It's been a really long time. And the fact that Woody Johnson pulled the plug this early, despite a bad-looking loss in London, I think just tells you the state of this football team.
Yeah, this team is supposed to have a good season, make the playoffs for the first time in 14 years.
Yeah.
But what are we seeing from the Jets this year? They're not bad than they were in previous years, but the loss to the Vikings was just telling.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game. Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions. He was getting banged around by the Viking defensive front. The offense couldn't produce till late. It was just, like I said, it wasn't good all around. And I think the Aaron Rodgers part of it all is the worst part of it all because you invested so much to get this guy who's at 40 years old, and he can't do the things he did back in 2011. So it's like you're investing on a veteran quarterback to get you to the promised land. And so far, I don't see that happening.
Yes, because, when Tua gets back, the Dolphins are going to take off. And the Bills, who they play on Monday night, the Bills are a good football team.
Yeah, the Bills and Dolphins are 2 teams that usually get hot late. The Jets, it's actually kind of a miracle the Jets are even in this division race to begin with because you mentioned it before. The Dolphins, they lost Tua. They've been losing some games, but they've hung in there. The Buffalo Bills had a rough 2-game stretch recently, but they're still in first place by a game. The Jets are lucky to be 2-3 right now, 1 game back. They should have won the Denver game. They should have won the Minnesota game. The one game that they clearly lost was the San Francisco 49er game on opening day. Outside of that, they really shot themselves in the foot.
Absolutely. They should have blown out Tennessee by like 50 points with that offense, but I kind of feel bad for guys like Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, the young talent that Joe Douglas has drafted is basically just being wasted, and it's a shame because we both
You
know
don't
Joe.
waste young talent with that because look, Joe Douglas knows his Joe Douglas has done a great job as the Jets general manager because he's really done a good job of turning around their draft strategy. He's brought in new ideas since he took over for Mike McCagnon, and I really think that Joe Douglas really knows talent all around.
Now, Joe Douglas has one of the best eyes for talent in all of football. He really does. It's just a shame that that ownership and coaching have outdone him in a bad way all the good that Joe Douglas has done.
Yeah, I would hate for him to get scapegoated from Woody Johnson, but I do think that Joe Douglas deserves to stay for a long time in Gang Green.
But now here's a question that I pose to you. If this is Aaron Rodgers' last year, if you're the Jets, where do you go from here?
Well, I mean, you got to go back to the drawing board at quarterback in the upcoming draft.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the draft doesn't have as much star power this year as it did last year. So the Jets are kind of betting. Again, this is kind of their last shot to do what they want to do with Aaron Rodgers. And as far as I'm concerned, the AFC is pretty decent to the point where, everyone's competitive. And the Jets, I mean, I don't know. I don't think they can fit in with that mold. It's tough to tell.
It is because, in the AFC East, the Patriots are rebuilding. We'll have to talk about them in a little bit because they lost a low-scoring affair to the Miami Dolphins, and then the Giants have been kind of surprising you lately. But in all forwardness, we'll start talking about our team's games from last week. We'll start with the Patriots and Dolphins. I mean, a game without Tua where the Dolphins beat them 15-10. I felt like that this was not a win or a loss that both teams should be proud of. Their performances were abysmal, but also we talked about yesterday that Drake May is going to be the starting quarterback against the Houston Texans in Week 6, which we think this is going to be a good first opportunity for Drake May to play against a team that is very, very good.
And you hit the nail on the head. This was a disgustingly bad game on both sides. No team really looked good at all. And even worse, the hits keep coming for the Miami Dolphins. Devon Achane suffered a concussion and will miss probably a game or two, depending on the severity of his head injury. But Snoop didn't look the part. He was okay. Tyler Huntley didn't look fantastic. And I think this was because of this effort that the Patriots put up, they probably wanted to do away with Jacoby Brissett after this. Like I said, Patriots did not look good at all. They were lucky to be down by 5 in this game. Brissett played terribly. But like I said, Tyler Huntley didn't look that good either. And it was going to be a shock if either one team got in the end zone, but the Dolphins somehow managed to. And this was a win that the Dolphins needed because it puts them in first place. But at the same time, like I said, both teams should not be proud of this performance.
No, they shouldn't. And the Miami Dolphins will get Tua for the Cardinals game for sure. But the Dolphins, I think they needed a bye week for sure to, reset before their next matchup against the Colts.
And that will probably be the last game before Tua comes back. And again, they're going to have to kind of grind their way through this one. Like I said, if they don't have Devon Achane, that's a big loss for them offensively.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. Because, being without Devon Achane is tough because he's really the guy that keeps the ball moving on the ground. But you also have to realize Raheem Mostert is good at everything, running and pass catching.
Yeah, so the Dolphins, the thing with them is they got a very poignant and very uplifting and vibrant passing game, and is also a running game. They have a really good offensive personnel, but they can't keep taking these injuries and expect to win. Like I said, they were lucky to win on Sunday, but my God, I mean, the hits just keep coming, but maybe they can weather the storm.
Well, then talk about the Giants. This was another game that they were supposed to come in and lose, and that all year long I was envisioning you wearing paper bags over your heads. But a lucky block costed the block field goal by Jason Myers' block field goal costed the Seattle Seahawks to win this football game or tie it. And the Giants put an exclamation point on that game with a 29-20 win over the Seattle Seahawks. I know, Matt, your team wasn't supposed to be this good. This team was supposed to be a team that was supposed to be in the running for one of the top 3 draft choices.
But you know what? I don't know what to think about this football team anymore. I really don't. I mean, the Seattle game, like you said, they were not supposed to win this game. But Daniel Jones played really well. I mean, I'll give him that. He played very well. The Giants got some good offensive drives going. They did not have Malik Neighbors this game, which I think was the most impressive part. They did not have their star receiver with them. But Daniel Jones looked good airing it out. Tyrone Tracy did really good running the football in relief of Devin Singletary. The defense played really well. The blocked field goal by Isaiah Simmons, I thought, was a massive play to give the Giants the win, especially in an environment like Seattle. Like, that was really, really a courageous win. But the problem with Giants fans now is they're looking at this as like, oh my God, why are they giving us hope? We don't need hope right now because Daniel Jones is only going to break your heart. Now, the Giants can probably win 7 games if they keep up this kind of momentum because they should have beaten the Dallas Cowboys. But again, they didn't need to win this game. But again, like, Daniel Jones has 2 years left on his contract, including this year. So next year is his last year of his extension. But I'm confused. I'm really confused. I'm happy about the win, but why? Why do you have to give us false hope?
It is false hope for Big Blue. But I just think the Giants, they're just not well equipped.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's confusing. Like, we gotta make our picks for this week because I gotta get somewhere going to another show. But after this, but to wrap up the point about the Giants, they really didn't need to win this game. But now next week we got the Bengals on Monday night. We'll get into our predictions for that in a second. But it's all like, do you think Daniel Jones is going to go blow for blow with Joe Burrow?
No,
not really. No,
not really. I mean, the Bengals. We'll have to talk about their game in a little bit, but talk about Thursday Night Football. Who would have thought the Atlanta Falcons would beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? It's another you like that moment for Kirk Cousins.
You said the classic phrase of Kirk Cousins. You like that, but Kirk Cousins had a phenomenal game. 509 yards passing, and he had, I think, 3 or 4 touchdown passes. He was incredible, and I think this is the reason why the Falcons wanted him to be the starter. That's why they gave him all this guaranteed money, because they know the talent is there, and he's proven it in Minnesota. He proved it in Washington, and now we're seeing it in full effect. And one thing I said to you a couple days ago or yesterday when we talked about the Falcons was they got to be looking pretty good after not naming Michael Penix Jr. the starter because they're getting the quality play from quarterback position with Kirk Cousins. Now, I also think this is good for Michael Penix's development because if you're playing like Kirk Cousins has played the last 4 weeks, you got to feel really good about what you're looking at.
Oh, yeah. Michael Penix is definitely developing into a big deal. But talk about the Cowboys being lucky in the Steel City. That's a game they should have lost. And if the Cowboys lost this game to the Steelers, Stephen A. Smith would just be laughing.
Bad. Look, again, another dreadful offensive performance. The Cowboys were lucky to even come out of this game alive. The Steelers, again, did not look good offensively, and now there's starting to be some circulation about a quarterback controversy in Pittsburgh. Whether or not Russell Wilson gets the start is something that we'll have to discuss later on, I guess. But the Dallas Cowboys are a very, very, very mediocre team. This is a team that really has gotten away with murder a couple times.
Oh, you're right about that. Because Stephen A. Smith, the song "The Accident Waiting to Happen"?
Yeah.
He says, a mediocre team in Big D.
Exactly. But like I said, the Cowboys, like the Chiefs in some instances, the Cowboys have gotten away with murder a couple of times. They should have lost this game. They should have lost the Giants game. They almost came back against the Ravens. The Browns game was the one game where they actually looked decent. But my God, like, this team is getting as like the God's touch on them. God is holding their hand right now. And that's actually kind of insane.
Well, I mean, Jerry Jones might be on his knees at church praying for Cowboys wins. And then he probably addressed the media, would say, look, we didn't play our best, and, we're going to need every ounce next Sunday against Detroit.
Yeah, and well, the Lions, if you remember last year's encounter with Detroit in Jerry's world, there was a lot of controversy about the tackle eligible rule. Detroit got robbed that game, and I guarantee you Dan Campbell and company are going to be very motivated to come into Jerry's world and kick their ass.
Oh, you're sending a strong message there for the Lions because they got robbed last year.
They did. They absolutely did. And everyone in Detroit knows it.
Well, with Monday Night Football, Derek Carr lost to the Chiefs again, but he got hurt.
Just hard to see. The Saints are trending downward now. And, you hate to see this because I thought the Clint Kubiak thing was going to be, a match made in heaven. But ever since their 2-0 start, they've lost the last 3 games. The Chiefs didn't look great again. I mean, they won this game convincingly, but they didn't actually look prolific like they have. And I think they're starting to feel a little bit of the Rashee Rice injury hurting their offense, but they still did enough to win. But the Saints
Travis
really
Kelce's starting to I think he's starting to pick it up, and then Xavier Worthy has had a great start to his rookie year, and Rashee Rice might be suspended until 26 because of the whole sexual assault battery.
Yeah, not good. Not a good look.
That's not really a good look for Rashee Rice. But anyways, on to our Week 6 picks. First, we start with Thursday Night Football in the Pacific Northwest. Well, you talk about the 49ers. They came off of an unlucky loss to the Arizona Cardinals, and the Seattle Seahawks came off an unlucky loss to the New York Giants. I feel like San Fran's going to need this in every ounce just because, we said that the Niners the Niners are not really in full strength right now, but once they get those guys back, they are going to be good. So I still believe in the Niners, so don't really count out the 49ers.
The Seattle Seahawks are on a little bit of a slump. They've lost their last 2 games to Detroit and New York Giants, respectively. The Seahawks are going to be at home. It's going to be loud. But I think the 49ers are just the better team on paper. So I'm going to go with the 49ers. And actually, this would tie the 49ers and Seahawks from first place in the NFC West.
I think they need that. But he talked about their game last week against the Cardinals. That was a game where Tom Brady was going nuts in the booth, and I just felt like that if the Niners just got that one field goal, then they would have won this football game.
Yeah, the Niners got really, they got a bad break that game. The Cardinals played really well, don't get me wrong. They got robbed, though. They really did not get the breaks that they needed.
But they played well, you said.
Right, yeah, they did play well.
Because Brock Purdy wasn't – I thought Brock Purdy played pretty good.
He did play really well. But you know what? Kyler Murray and that Cardinal offense and defense played especially better, as my dog is going crazy for my take.
Oh, yeah. But anyways, the Jaguars and the Bears in London. But speaking of the Jaguars, they got to win. They got to win.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Oh, the dog's going bananas. Anyway, the Jags and Bears in London. But the Jags did get their win. They continued their streak against the Colts in Duval, which I thought was actually something that needed to be brought up.
That might have saved Doug Peterson's job.
For the time being, yeah, that saved him for now. But the London game, the Bears are starting to heat up a little bit. They're heating up. They look pretty good. Caleb Williams starting to come alive a little bit. DJ Moore looking good. But I will say this London game is going to be a clash of number 1 picks. But if I had to pick, I'd take the Bears in this one. I think the Bears upset the Jaguars. And the reason why is because I think the Jaguars struggle with secondary coverage. And I think DJ Moore is going to run naked free through the secondary. And Roma Dunte is going to go off as well. So I take the Chicago Bears.
I'm going to pick the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they can pick up where they left off from the Colts game. But speaking of that Colts game last week, Joe Flacco had a great game. I mean, I felt like that he was torching that Jags defense in bunches. I mean, could have been better with Jonathan Taylor. But you know what? Joe Flacco, I don't know if he's starting again this week, but if he does, I feel like the Colts will get that pick in a minute. the Colts could take advantage of a really iffy Tennessee Titans team.
Yeah, I mean, literally the only standout from that AFC South division is the Texans. We'll get into them later. But the problem with the Colts, one of the main reasons why they lost this game was Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor were both hurt. But like you said, Joe Flacco held the fort down really well. Alec Pierce had a couple of really nice catches for touchdowns. I just think the Colts need to be at full strength. They have a great offensive line, which has stayed healthy. Like I said, their running game lacked because no Jonathan Taylor. And I think that Joe Flacco is a good serviceable backup to have just in case of a situation like Anthony Richardson. But with Anthony Richardson, one thing I am going to say is that guy needs to prove that he can be durable. He hasn't been healthy. He missed a lot of last year due to injury, and now he's missing time again.
Well, next up, we talk about the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, for the Saints, they might start Spencer Rattler. And Spencer Rattler is probably the heir apparent to Derek Carr.
Yeah, I'm very upset for Derek Carr with everything that transpired the last few weeks. But Spencer Rattler looks like he's going to get the start. Mike Evans has a history with the New Orleans Saints that isn't too kind. And I think the Buccaneers are just more talented on paper than the Saints. So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay.
I agree with you on that. Tampa Bay is going to come into the Big Easy and take that victory. Because, the Saints, I mean, we talked about them way out a lot during the summer, and we talked about how we weren't very high on them, but I feel like that they still have talented pieces on the roster, but they're now running into a very tough schedule. Like, the thing about the Saints is they're lucky they're in a crappy division. Like, they're still in it, but they're like, when they lost to Kansas City, they can't play against teams like that.
No, that's unacceptable play on the part of them. I know Derek Carr got hurt, but still, the offensive execution for the Saints against the Chiefs was poor, and they have to be better. But I want to see how Spencer Rattler plays because we haven't seen too much of him, former South Carolina prodigy.
Or you're forgetting the fact that Taysom Hill can play quarterback.
Yeah, but he primarily is used as tight end. And I remember when the Saints used him at quarterback in 2020 when Drew Brees got hurt, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. So I think Spencer Rattler's your guy.
Well, and then you talk about the Washington Commanders playing the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, I feel like Jaden Daniels is turning out to be what C.J. Stroud was a year ago.
The diamond in the rough rookie. I mean, seriously, he's been amazing. It's like RG3 back in 2012, but this is the DC Maryland suburbs matchup here between these two teams. The Baltimore Ravens and Commanders are fairly close to each other, but Lamar Jackson and the Ravens had another big win against the Bengals in what was a shootout. The Commanders looked really good on paper. Again, they look fantastic against the Browns, but it's basically two guys with similar styles at quarterback. It's Jane Daniels, who's a runner and passer, and then Lamar, who's just electric on both fronts.
I'm picking the Ravens to win this game. I think it's going to be a Justin Tucker game-winning field goal from 42 yards.
Oh, very specific. I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to say that Jane Daniels' incredible rookie season continues with a win over the Ravens in a 24-21 game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, won't be shocked about that because, I feel like Jaden Daniels is better than RG3.
Well, right now, short term, he's looked a lot better.
Well, the Arizona Cardinals could look to continue their winning ways in Green Bay against the Packers. I mean, you talk about the Cardinals. They played very well against the 49ers. They really wore out what they were good at defensively. And Kyler Murray has looked like the Kyler Murray of old again.
He's looked really solid. And I think having Jonathan Gannon as your head coach to work on defensive tendencies, but also focus on not turning the football over as much. I think that was the main reason why the Cardinals got him, was because they really wanted their offense to be potent and effective. And I think getting Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft this past summer was massive. But again, the Cardinals just look better. And I had my high hopes on them so far against that Niners game. They proved why I'm right about the Cardinals being pretty good.
And for the Green Bay Packers, they got a huge win against the Los Angeles Rams. So I'm taking the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. But if the Cardinals prove me wrong again, then that's something to talk about next week.
Oh boy, but this is a tough one to pick, believe it or not. I like both teams. I'm gonna go with Jordan Love and the Packers on this one. I think that the Packers offer a little bit more to the table than the Cardinals do at this point.
Oh yeah, they have a lot more to that. That's for sure. But anyways, now we'll talk about the Houston, the Tennessee Titans, and the Indianapolis Colts. So I'll tell you, I think I think that should be an easy win for the Colts in this one.
Yeah. No, enough said. I mean, the Titans, we don't know if Will Levis is going to play. Last time we saw him, I actually went to the game in Miami where he got hurt. If it's Mason Rudolph, it's going to be a blowout. If it's Will Levis, it might be a little bit more competitive, but I still think Joe Flacco and the Colts get this win here.
Ryan Callahan has repeatedly stated that Will Levis is the guy.
Well, I mean, so far it's not looking too good. It didn't look good for most of last year, and it hasn't looked good this year.
Well, the Patriots are going to be in for a test, and Drake May's first career start might not get a win in this one, but I want him to go out there, have some fun, and be competitive, because knowing that the Patriots offensive line has been garbage all year again, which I'm not too pleased with this young team. I mean, but the Houston Texans are a team that I think they're probably going to come into Foxborough and blow us out. So CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans, they're probably going to wheel us out.
I hate to agree with you on this, but I'm going to say the same thing. I think the Texans win in a rout.
Because here's the thing about the Patriots. Their secondary is not good this year, with the exception for Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, that's pretty much the lone bright spot in the secondary. And I think the one thing that people are going to forget, though, is that Nico Collins is week to week with a hamstring injury.
And he's going to miss at least 4 games now.
Yeah, but you still have Stephon Diggs. You still have Tank Dell. Dalton Schultz is still effective. Passing for.
What about Robert Woods?
Robert Woods is a good contributor as well. I think he can fill in that spot nicely for Collins. So I think that maybe the Texans are going to be just fine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're well coached anyway by DeMeco Ryans. This is a matchup of 2 former players with their former teams going at it.
That's right.
I mean, I think Gerard Mayo has done a great job so far. But look, the record that we're on right now, it's not totally on him.
No, it's not on him. Like I said, he's just building a foundation right now with this team. And I feel like it's going to take a year or two. Like, I feel like this year for the Patriots is let's take a look at what we have and build off of it. And then if we see any improvements that we need to make, we'll make them.
I think that's a good approach that they're taking right now. But anyways, the Eagles are back from their bye week, and I hope they are ready to get more wins, because there is heat right now around Nick Sirianni. And I'm not agreeing with people saying that Nick Sirianni should be fired, this or that. I think Nick Sirianni has done a great job, but it's the team that most of the time doesn't execute at the right time. So I'm going to pick the Eagles in a blowout over the Cleveland Browns. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry, Kevin Stefanski, you might get fired after this game.
You know what? That's actually a bold prediction that I can actually appreciate, because Deshaun Watson has not been good. They paid this guy $230 million, and he has done nothing. It's been a disaster. So, and plus the Eagles are going to get Devontae Smith and AJ Brown back. So that's a positive outlook for the Eagles. But Jalen Hurts has to play better, and I feel like maybe this is a tipping point for him.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are saying that Nick Sirianni is on the hot seat, but I don't really think he's hotter than the other coaches that are on the hot seat.
I mean, there are coaches right now that are not looking as good as Nick Sirianni is. I mean, listen, the Eagles could be playing a lot better at this point in the year. Don't get me wrong. They could be playing a lot better. But I feel like Nick Sirianni is not really at fault for their slow start.
No, he's not. I mean, losing to Tampa Bay, that's the Eagles' kryptonite. That was the first time he was there since the popcorn incident, which was uncalled for. That was a Eagle fan being out of control.
Yeah, listen, like I said, you got to rebound. And I think the Eagles, they went into that Tampa Bay game with a bunch of injuries. And that's why they lost the way they did. But now, like I said, they should be getting a lot of guys back. I think they should be okay.
Yeah, they should. I mean, but releasing Devin White was uncalled for when it comes to their defense. But you know what? I really like this Eagles defense centered around Davis, Brandon Graham. Vic Fangio's got a great defense that he's working with.
Yeah, no, Vic Fangio's got a lot of good personnel. I'm with you on the Devin White thing. I was kind of a shock that they let him go, but I think that they have a lot of good personnel anyway. But as far as Devin White goes, I'm shocked that he was released this early in the year. He only signed a 1-year contract and was let go after 5 games. I'm wondering what's next for him.
Well, anyways, now on to the late afternoon slate. First off, the first time these two quarterbacks have played in a game together since 2019, Justin Herbert and the LA Chargers taking on Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. I'll tell you what, we've slacked on the Denver Broncos the last 2 years, but you know what? They have a real quarterback now.
I mean, Bo Nix looked really good against the Raiders. I'm not going to deny that. He looked really good. But Justin Herbert, actually, correct me if I'm wrong, these are 2 former Oregon quarterbacks, correct?
Yeah, 2 former Oregon quarterbacks.
Wow, okay. So
Justin Herbert, but Bo Nix also started at Auburn.
Oh, okay. So Bo Nix has quite a college resume over there. But anyway, 2 former Oregon QBs going at it. This should be fun. Bo Nix finally got the game that he needed, and that was against the Raiders. And
even though Sean Payton and Bo Nix were both chirping on the sideline, it was like Tom Brady and Bill O'Brien all over again.
Yeah, hey, listen, you know what? Sometimes that just shows the fire and desire to win from 2 feisty people. 2 feisty competitors in Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Listen, the Bronco game wasn't perfect, but they blew out the Raiders. And that's what you need. I mean, sometimes a little conflict is fine, but I think that the Chargers are going to give you a little bit of fits. But I want to see how composed Bo Nix can be in situations like this. I'm going to go with the Chargers for now, but I like what the Broncos have done.
I'm going with the LA Chargers in this game. I think that Justin Herbert, you're going to get a lot of guys back, such as Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater. Joey Bosa should be back then. I think the LA Chargers should come into Mile High and beat the Raiders just because beat the Broncos. Beg your pardon, because I just think, the Chargers are a great team on paper with Jim Harbaugh. I was at the Charger game before their bye week against Kansas City. They looked good for the first half, but they just looked blanked in the second half.
Yeah, it wasn't consistent performance. I mean, they really could have done so much better in that Chiefs game, especially with the Rashee Rice being out. But again, this Charger team is still trying to find their footing. I think they've done a lot more things right this year than wrong so far at this point in the year. And I think that Jim Harbaugh is ready for the test.
Well, next up, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know who I want to win this game because both teams don't have good quarterbacks right now. I mean, there's a quarterback controversy in the Steel City, and the Raiders just made a switch from Gardner Minshew to Aiden O'Connell, and I think that makes Antonio Pierce Antonio Pierce is in love with Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, he started late last year when things weren't going well with Jimmy Garoppolo. So, listen, I'm not a big fan of Aiden O'Connell, former Purdue quarterback, but he has done well. He has had his moments where he's looked really good, but he's also had games where he is ineffective. But on the Pittsburgh side of things, Justin Fields' 3-0 start was the most lucky shenanigans I've ever seen. And I think it's probably a testament to Mike Tomlin as a coach. I think it really is. It's more so a testament to Mike Tomlin being a great coach than Justin Fields being a good quarterback. But if I had to pick this game, honestly, oh, God. I'm going to go with the Raiders just because they're trying to erase all the shenanigans that they're fine without Devontae Adams.
Oh, I'll pick the Raiders in this one. It's at home. I feel like Antonio Pierce has his guys playing very hard. But like Tony Romo said, Antonio Pierce is the man.
Yeah, he is. And I think that that's going to be continued. It's going to be a battle of 2 really good coaches. But like I said, I think Mike Tomlin, if the Steelers lose this game, is going to be faced with a major, major question at quarterback.
Oh, yeah. Not really on him or something like that. But anyways, well, the Atlanta Falcons visit the Carolina Panthers, where you're probably not going to see a sellout crowd on a 125 game. I'm like, why did the NFL schedule this game at 125? Because I don't think the Panthers deserve to play in that time slot.
It just bad scheduling. It's a 4:30 game on the East Coast. But I don't know why they scheduled it the way they did. All I'm gonna say about this game,
you know what, the Panthers should have all 1 o'clock games.
They should all have 1 o'clock Eastern time games. They really should, because right now the Panthers haven't done anything special or significant. But I think Kirk Cousins keeps rolling. I think I gotta go with the Falcons in this one easily.
That should be an easy win for the Falcons because In my Madden League, the Carolina Panthers just only won one game this year, and the rest were losses. Just how brutal their schedule was. And I have a
Yeah.
feeling that they're probably going to move in a different direction at quarterback. I'm not blaming Dave Canales on this. He's doing everything he can, but he just has a bad roster.
Yeah, it's just a bad hand. Dave Canales has a bad hand. That's really all you can say.
Yeah, don't Dave Tepper should not make another move at head coach again. If he does, I'm going to be like, I'm done. I'm done with Dave Tepper.
At that point, you'd probably give up on the Carolina Panthers just because the owner keeps making coaching changes and it's unnecessary.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't do that with Canales. He should be patient with him and give him some more leeway.
Yeah, like I said, week 6, I got the Falcons blowing out the Panthers, but I don't want a coaching change to be made in Carolina.
What's that?
I don't want a coaching change in Carolina again.
Oh, my God, that would be horrific. But the Detroit Lions coming into Gerald against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys were lucky to survive that win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think Stephen A. Smith would be happy about it. But you know what? Let's see if the Detroit Lions can put up a barrage of points over the Cowboys. And I'm picking the Detroit Lions to win this game because they got robbed last year in Big D with that controversial tackle eligible rule. And I also think Dan Campbell is going to come in with fire.
Oh, my goodness. If the Lions aren't fired up for this game this week, then there's a problem. But I know Dan Campbell really well enough to know his coaching style is energy, passion, intensity. And I think the Lions are going to bring all 3 of those. I love the Lions offense. I love the defense. The Cowboys are not as good as they were last year. Like I said, this should be an easy win for the Lions. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, look, Aiden Hutchinson should get to Dak Prescott more than once. In the running game, aside from Rico Dowdy, Ezekiel Elliott, oh no.
Bad. Just Zeke is washed. He's washed.
And this game is a game that I'm not interested in watching on Sunday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals, they had a great game, but they lost because of their atrocious defense to the Baltimore Ravens. This is what I'm telling you about the Cincinnati Bengals. I am a huge fan of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and that offense.
Right.
But my God, their defense is atrocious. They can't really get to the quarterback. They can't cover the elite receivers. Their offensive line is still atrocious. It's just that I'm not really a fan of the Bengals defense.
Yeah, the defense is lackluster to say the least. They gave up 41 points to Lamar Jackson. It was very, very. I mean, Joe Burrow had a phenomenal game, but you can't rely on your defense and your offense to do so much. I mean, Joe Burrow can only do so much for your football team. The defense had to play better, and they looked horrible. So, but against the Giants, though, that's a tough one. I mean, Daniel Jones can easily, play well in this game, or he could easily turn away some opportunities offensively. I mean, I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one just because I don't expect the Giants to go back-to-back wins, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm picking the Bengals too. I just think that the Cincinnati Bengals, if they beat the Giants, this is going to be their turning point of the season.
Yeah, and that's what they need right now because this is a team that should be a contender in the AFC, and so far they haven't proven that. 1-4 is not good.
Well, taking a look after the Giants game, it's not going to get easier from there because in week 7, they're playing the Cleveland Browns. That should be an easy win for the Bengals. And then week 8, they got to host the Philadelphia Eagles.
So it's a tough road for the Bengals, if you will, but if they get this win over the Giants, like you said, it could be a turning point, and maybe they could string together some more victories. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But if the Giants win this game, my blood pressure is going to go up to here. It's not going to be pleasant.
Well, to conclude week 6, the Buffalo Bills head to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Jets. And it's going to be the head coaching debut of Jeff Ulbrich. And I'm kind of apprehensive about Jeff Ulbrich because, look, he hasn't been a head coach before. I'm like, this is the first time he's been a head coach. But I'm not really counting on the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Yeah.
win this football game. So I'm picking the Buffalo Bills to win this game. But I know Ryan and Big D, your dad, might be shocked about the Robert Saleh firing. I don't know if you had conversations with him about it.
Well, I actually have had conversations with Ryan Jr. about this, and one of the things he told me was that Robert Saleh was a guy who was popular with the players, but the problem with Robert Saleh was the fact that he was not really managing a team. He was kind of just there monitoring things. He wasn't really responsible or accountable for any actions. So when there were people in the media who said, "Well, the Jets let go of the most unimportant person on their staff right now." And that's kind of harsh to put it because Robert Saleh does have some significance. He kept the locker room together. He got along with Aaron Rodgers, and it's just weird to think this way. But to get back to the game for a second, I think the Buffalo Bills win this one. I think the Jets are in a really, really tough position with this coaching change.
Yeah, I think the Bills win this game. But talk about next week, Week 7. To start Week 7, Sean Payton returns to the Big Easy to play the Saints. That's going to be a lot of headlines on Thursday night.
A lot of storylines going into that one.
First time but my question for you is, will the Saints fans cheer him or boo him?
They're going to cheer him.
As they should, because he's meant a lot to the Saints for all this time, and he and Drew Brees were one of the best quarterback to head coaching era in Saints history. They won the Super Bowl there, and I'll tell you, the New Orleans Saints had their best years with Sean Payton.
They did, and it's more than just a glory era for the Saints with Payton and Brees. It was also the fact that they started this era when the city of New Orleans was in devastating terms right now with Hurricane Katrina. And the Saints needed to be something positive for the community and for the state and for the city. And that's all the Saints have been during the Payton era.
Oh, yeah. The Hurricane Katrina storyline was something. And then talk about next week, you talk about the Patriots and Jags playing in London. Sunday Night Football. The Jets and the Steelers. Oh, boy. Who would want to watch that game? And then you got two Monday night games, one on ESPN Plus and the other on ESPN with the Ravens and Buccaneers. So those should be very good games here. But anyways, now on to baseball. We have an update for you. The Detroit Tigers are up 3-0 over the Cleveland Guardians. And then you talk about the Mets just starting. They have a man on at second against the Phillies with Brandon Nimmo on the mat at the plate. I mean, for my question for you on Game 4 of the NLDS between the Mets and the Phillies, do the Phillies force a Game 5, or do the Mets close it out?
Mets got to close it out tonight. They got Jose Quintana on the mound. I guess he's off to a good start in the first inning. But the Mets have the momentum right now. They got the fans in Citi Field all pumped up and excited. They had their first home game in 16 days yesterday, and they blew out the Phillies. They stomped them into a hole. It was really incredible to see. But I think the Mets win this game barely. I think they win by 1 run. I think it's going to be that close. And I think that the Phillies are the most talented team in baseball, arguably, or one of the top talented teams in baseball, gets knocked out in the NLDS. And as for the Tigers, they were going bullpen game today, and I'm really surprised that they're up 3-0 right now because usually they're a two-trick pony. They're either going to go bullpen or Tarek Skubal. Bullpen or Tarek Skubal. It's a 50-50 decision, but if Detroit gets this win, they're going to be in really good shape. And I'm really surprised about what they've been doing.
Well, the Dodgers just named their opener for this bullpen game, and it's going to be Brian Brazier that will start. And I think Ryan Brazier will be the 1-inning opener, and then maybe we'll see Landon Knack or I think Landon Knack will probably take the bulk of the game.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this a little bit off air before we even got on. I think it's probably how it's going to go. I mean, the Dodgers have a lot of arms in the bullpen that they could use. But I will say this, they need to win today for sure. Bring it back to LA and then force a Game 5 and get Yamamoto back on the mound.
Yeah, we're going to need that. We're going to need every ounce of this today. So anyways, here now we talk about the Yankees and Royals. I mean, both teams split the first 2 games in the Bronx. Now you're going to the K in Kansas City, where Clark Schmidt's on the mound. But you got to talk about. I think Bobby Witt, you're facing a MVP runner-up in Bobby Witt Jr., who's had a pretty good series.
Well, he hasn't really done amazing in this series. He's been pretty good. I think the Orioles wildcard series, he was more effective. But this is probably his chance to shine. Clark Schmidt, of the 3 starters that the Yankees have right now for this series, Clark Schmidt's the weakest one of the 3. Between Cole, Rodon, and Schmidt's the weakest. But they got to keep Bobby Witt Jr. in check. But on the offensive side, it's more of an offensive thing for the Yankees. Aaron Judge, in his postseason career, is batting under 210. That's a narrative that needs to change. And I know that Giancarlo Stanton has also had his fair share of blunders in this series so far, but if you're the Yankees, you gotta get the job done. You gotta force a game 5, force a game 4, and win game 3.
Well, you already have a game 4 guaranteed for tomorrow.
Yeah, I said it the wrong way. They need to win game 3 and get Cole back on the mound with a 2-1 series lead because Garrett Cole, I've said this before, this has not been his best season, but one of the things I am going to say is Cole thrives when he has an advantage. When he does not have an advantage, he crumbles. So if you put Garrett Cole down 1-2 as opposed to up 2-1, you're going to see 2 completely different pitchers.
Yeah, Garrett Cole's on the mound tomorrow, and you're really going to need they're going to need to, whatchamacall this?
They're going to need productive outings from both Schmidt today and Cole tomorrow.
Well, and then you also talk about you also have to talk about game 5. Who are you going to go with then?
If the Yankees go game 5?
Yes.
Back to Rodon. That's how it goes.
Back to the Dodgers and Padres game 3 series. I felt like that if it weren't for that error from Freddie Freeman, then I think the Dodgers would have kept it a 0 here.
It would have been. I don't think it would have been a shutout for the Dodgers, but I do think it would have been a Dodger victory had Freddie Freeman not thrown the ball directly at Machado. But the Padres are not playing scared by any means. I mean, you got to give them some credit. They are not playing with any intimidation at all in their veins. They are very, very focused on the agenda, and that's why they have the 2-1 series lead. And for the Dodgers, I'm going to say this. I backtracked my Dave Roberts thing. I agree with that. And I know the Dodgers have had some rotation issues with injuries, but when you have the best record in baseball, when you have the best player in baseball, I expected a little bit more of a fight. But if you lose this season, if you lose this series, it's over. But I think there's a lot to look forward next year.
Oh, yeah. If they lose tonight, that doesn't mean they're going to fire Dave Roberts just because I think the front office really likes Dave Roberts. I think that Andrew Friedman and Dave Roberts have a good rapport. It's just the crazy people that just want these things to happen, but it won't.
And by the way, while we're talking about the Dodgers and Padres, I do want to let people know about this little thing. Dodger fans should be ashamed of themselves for the way they acted in Game 2. Really, really shameful. Throwing beers on the field, throwing baseballs at Jerkson Profar. It was just uncalled for. And I know these are 2 division rivals that absolutely hate each other. I get it. But at the same time, they had to upgrade security at Petco Park just because of some immaturity on the part of the fans. And this is not how it should be. I feel like fans need to be civil about this. They need to be civil about this. They need to be mature about this. And from a fan's perspective, listen, I'm a Yankee fan. If we were playing the Red Sox in the playoffs, I wouldn't act like this. So Dodger fans need to really accept the fact that they got themselves a series. And whether they win or lose, I'm not 100% sure. But you can't act like that in a playoff game. It's just unacceptable. And every fan who got ejected should be accountable for that.
Absolutely. They should definitely be held accountable for that. But anyways, now we have an update for you in the Mets-Phillies game. We got the bases loaded for Jose Iglesias, OMG.
Oh, my God. What's the situation?
Bases loaded, 1 out, no balls, and 2 strikes. Ranger Suarez is on the mound, and he is in trouble right now.
Oh, boy. And this is the last thing the Phillies wanted.
Yeah, like Aaron Nola didn't pitch that great. Zach Wheeler had his outing wasted, and Iglesias just struck out swinging. But I feel like in my show league next year, I'll tell you, the New York Mets will probably be a playoff team.
Well, I mean, they're playing with a lot of mojo right now. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So, anyways, we also have to talk about Bud Black. The Colorado Rockies agreed to another 1-year contract through 2025. You know my thoughts on this? He's just a puppet to Bill Schmidt. I know he's friends with Bill Schmidt, but he's I just feel like ownership is giving him a bad roster.
It really is. And I feel bad for Bud Black. I feel like he's being put through something that he really shouldn't be put through. And, again, as much as I appreciate the commitment to staying through thick and thin with this team, it's just unnecessary for him. I know the Colorado Rockies love him, but at the same time, things have got to be better in Colorado for him to, get a kind of extension like that.
I kind of don't think when it comes to the Rockies offseason, I'll tell you, I just think that for the Rockies, they're not well ran by any means.
No, and you're 100% right. I feel like at some point, things have to change with this Rockies organization. I feel like they're just doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they're trying to expect a different result, but they haven't really been aggressive over the offseason. They did lose Charlie Blackmon to retirement. We've discussed this before, so there's a lot to really, just shake your head and go, what are they doing? Are we even going to be competitive this year in Colorado? Like, there's not really a lot of optimism.
There isn't, but just an update here. JD Martinez just struck out with the bases loaded, and we're still scoreless through 1 inning.
Wow. Crazy.
So you're seeing a crazy, the Mets, I think the Mets last night, you got to tell me your thoughts on that Grimace on the subway going to Citi Field. I know Grimace has his own little purple seat at Citi Field.
That is correct. If you looked at the SMY TV Instagram page, you will find that in Queens, New York, there is a subway train called the 7 train, I think it's called, where Grimace owns the train, and he is the main attraction for going on the 7 train. And you saw a bunch of people after the Mets won Game 3 last night. You saw a lot of people jumping for joy, chanting "Grimace, Grimace, Grimace." It was actually kind of a fun sight to see. But again, this is just the Mets embracing something that happened back in June, and they're making it work, and I appreciate them for it. This thing is just getting funnier and funnier with every passing day, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, it is getting funnier. You're right about that. I think the Grimace is really bringing the New York Mets some luck.
It is. No, and you got to give them credit. You got to give them credit because they found an identity, and they've run with it, and they're playing well right now. They struck out with the bases loaded, but if they win today, they're going to avoid going back to Philly. Like right now, if you're the Mets and the Tigers, if you're the Padres and Mets right now, you want to win Game 4 because if you win Game 4, you avoid going back, forcing a Game 5 when you're away, and you're actually in some sort of advantage. And then for the Tigers, who are up 3-0 right now against the Guardians at home, you want to win Game 2 and then take a Game 4 because, like I said, you don't want to force a decisive Game 5 because by then their fatigue sets in, doubt sets in, and you don't know how that's going to go. Game 5s can go either way.
They can go either way, but we got to talk some college football here. Talk about the biggest upset of last week. Alabama getting upset by Vanderbilt, where the fans tore down the goalpost and took it to the river.
That was fun. Actually, I want to give a shout out to my cousin Joseph, who actually goes to Vanderbilt. It's his freshman year at Vanderbilt. He was at the game. He FaceTimed me running onto the field and celebrating with the team. So I thought that was actually kind of cool. But Vanderbilt hasn't had a top 5 win in their history. They've actually, in their previous 60 top 5 games where they faced a top 5 opponent, they actually lost all 60. This was attempt number 61, and they hit it. And not only did they win, they beat the number 1 team in the country. So my question to you is, and I think the media has brought this up a lot, would this be different if Nick Saban was still coaching the team?
It could be, yes, but Kalen DeBoer has done a good job.
He has done a good job. I will give him that. But the way the game was handled, I was watching the replay of a couple things. A lot of situational awareness by Kalen DeBoer has been okay. I think Nick Saban has a lot more discipline than Kalen DeBoer does. But sometimes you learn the hard way. I mean, the Crimson Tide are still going to be a lock to make the playoffs most likely. So I wouldn't really worry about that in Tuscaloosa. But good for Vanderbilt. This was their first top. They beat the number one team in the country for the first time in their program history, and you got to give them some love.
Which college football game you're looking forward to next week?
That's a good question.
This week, I mean.
This week. That's a really good question. Good one. I'm going to look forward to Oregon and Ohio State. That's a game where you got two top 3 teams going at it in Ohio State and Oregon, who's now part of the Big Ten. And you got 2 really good quarterbacks. I'm very, very impressed with Ohio State's offense. I think this is going to be a very, very offensive scoring game. I think that both teams are going to throw the ball very well. I think defensively, this is going to be a track meet. I don't think there's going to be a lot of defensive stops, but I got Ohio State winning that one.
Well, I'll also tell you this. I mean, we forgot to talk about this on baseball segment before we go here. I mean, what was your thoughts on Terry Francona being the Reds manager? I really think this is good for Cincinnati, and I kind of have an early take on this. The Reds could win the NL Central with Terry Francona in his first year.
I like the signing a lot. I like the hire by the Reds. I feel like they were just a young team with no direction before this. Now they got some direction and veteran leadership in Terry Francona, who you got to remember was Guardians manager for a long time and managed them to a World Series and helped a lot of players develop. You're talking about Jose Ramirez. You're talking about Josh Naylor. A lot of guys like that who were really young back then and executed very, very great baseball, very, very effective at bats. I mean, this is a team that needs that. And I think LA De La Cruz is going to thrive off of this.
Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right about this. But I also forgot to tell you that in my show league when the Reds open their 25 season at Great American Ballpark, it'll be Terry Francona's first game as Reds managers against the Cubs.
Wow, okay.
A team that beat him in the World Series with the Cleveland Indians.
That's correct.
Anyways, Matt, you have a good rest of your day, and I know that you have to get your dog and all that, but have a good day, everybody. I'll talk next week.
Take care, everybody.
Oops. Sorry about that. So next week,